Garage Squad. My name is Emily, and I am here to say hello from small town Minnesota. Coming to you from Willmar, Minnesota, very small town of just over 20,000 people. I want to introduce you to the mayor of our city. This is our brand new mayor. Isn't he handsome? That's my daddy. My daddy, since the very beginning of when I was a little girl and we knocked on doors so that he could be a city councilman in our town, has always had just a servant heart for his city and for people. And he just got elected mayor this year. You could kind of say he's one of those guys who loves to build legacy. He doesn't do it purposefully. He just does it with his big heart. And my dad has a heart for his family too. He has left a legacy in our family of hard work and perseverance, and also a lot of joy in learning. So I want to tell you his story. Of course, about his car, since that's why we're here, right? When my dad was young, he was like any young man. He had just finished college and he was going into the Navy. He was doing things to start earning money. And what does every young guy want but a car, right? So he had saved his pennies and nickels, and it was time to buy his car. It was 1969 and he had his eyes on a Dodge Dart. He wanted a Dodge Dart Swinger. So he had nickel and dimed and saved his money and went to Conklin Auto Shop where he had worked, and he ordered his Dodge Dart Swinger because they were backed up in production and you had to order it and wait for it. Oh, I can imagine the wait on that. So he waited very, very patiently for his car to come in. He went to his smaller town than Willmar even, Winthrop State Bank, and applied for a loan and did his small monthly payments to get ready for that car. About the time the astronauts were landing on the moon, his car was ready for him, and he went and picked it up, and he had his dream car. Since I was a little girl, I heard about that dream car, and I have seen the picture of my mother and father, and after getting the car, they were engaged to get married, and I have this iconic photo that I see all the time of my beautiful mother and my handsome daddy standing in front of that beautiful car in their engagement photo. Well, life began, and they started a family. They started to have children. My parents have 3 children, my older sister, Sarah, and my brother, Stephen, and then me, the baby of the family. But as soon as they started a family, they recognized the fact that this Dodge Dart was not probably the best family car, because boy, was that a gas guzzler. And at one point, they just looked at each other and said, we have got to get rid of this car. It is so expensive to fill up. How are we going to afford to start a family? Guess how much it was to fill up that car? Wouldn't we just love this today? $5. $5 to fill that gas tank. But I guess then again, he was making at the time $3,600 a year. So they put up the car for sale just as they were about to start their family. You know, they're buying a $20,000 house and money was really tight. They were now a young family in another small town called Hutchinson, Minnesota. And they traded the car in at a dealership there for a sedan. And at that time, as the car pulled away, my mother looked at my father and her eyes kind of sunk. And she said, I think we're making a big mistake. In that moment, my father looked at my mother and said, if I ever find a car like that again, I am buying it and it's gonna be ours. Fast forward years and years later, and he had been keeping his eyes peeled throughout all of us kids growing up. About the time my brother was in high school, my dad was driving down one of the highways near our now town in Willmar. He was a city councilman at the time and everything, and his eyes were drawn to a car off the side of the road, and there sat, almost identical to a Swinger, it was a 68 Dodge Dart sitting there. It was a rust bucket. Like, I think you could see through the walls of that car. He brought it home and put it in our garage. And he came in elated, like bounding into the house, and he said, "Come out and see what I got." My mother and I walked out into the garage and I went, "What on earth are you going to do with that?" Well, from 1992 to 1998, my brother and my dad worked feverishly on that car with a little help from another gentleman named Ken Wilms. And they started to put that car back together. This time spent together, father and son, was so precious. There's where the legacy begins. Not only was the car a legacy, but the legacy of working with his son in that garage and hours, and the joy of turning a rust bucket piece of junk into a beautiful legacy. They fixed up that car, and it even propelled my brother into a profession in auto body and learning to be the amazing fix-it guy he is today. They spent so many hours out there, and when that car was finally drove out of the garage, boy, was it pristine and beautiful, and it looked just like that photo of their engagement photo. It was glorious. My dad and my brother, oh man, the legacy and the pride that they had. They went to car shows and won multiple awards. They just enjoyed their time in car roll-ins. And as the years have gone on, that car has been a legacy to my children as well. My husband and I are a military family, and my kids for a long time grew up far away from Nana and Papa. And we finally were released from the submarine community, and we came back and landed straight back in our little town of Willmar, Minnesota. And my children, as they were raised, they would get to take rides in Papa's Dodge Dart. They would hop in the back seat and he would take them to roll-ins to A&Ws, and they would get root beer floats, and they would meet all the other car drivers and everything else. My children love to go to car roll-ins, and my third child, he has the same desire for that legacy. He goes to those and he talks with all the older gentlemen. He just adores being there with his papa. About 3 years ago, my father was diagnosed with Parkinson's, and he is a warrior. That man does not slow down, and he keeps going at full steam. You can tell he was just elected mayor because he loves this city and he loves the place where he lives. But his Parkinson's is slowly taking a toll. He tries his hardest to stay active. He is busy with pickleball leagues and all kinds of meetings and getting around town and things like that. And he's doing amazing. But because of some of the things that are happening within his body, he is unable to keep up with his car. So there is a lot of things that have started to go back into, I want to say, just into, it's not a junk pile, but it's junk state. So he wants his heirloom and his legacy to stay put together so that he can pass that on to these next generations of his son or his grandsons or these people in his family who this is the moment where I cue the Garage Squad. I'm asking for your help for this man who just loves his city, loves his people, loves his family, and just wants to share a beautiful, beautiful legacy that began as a young man and through a young marriage and through a young family and into his own children growing and now his grandchildren. Can you please help us out? We would adore it.